Hello. Welcome to today's podcast of Her Version, dedicated to hearing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure to follow, like, subscribe, and share. Today, I am sharing the platform with Miss Vevian. How are you?
I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing fantastic. Vevian,
Awesome.
last minute. Where are you again?
I
Sweden?
am in Stockholm, Sweden. Yes.
Sweden. Last minute. I had a cancellation and I literally just messaged her like less than 24
Yay!
hours ago. And I'm like, will
Yes,
you fill in for me? So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate
of
you.
course.
We were just talking about gray hair. And I was telling her how frustrated I am about all of my gray and how I'm really thinking about going all gray, because it's just, I feel like it would be pretty, but I also just feel like it would age me. So I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
I
I, I
did
am I am
see.
one of those people that are gonna be coloring their hair till like I die. So
Yeah.
I am already I'm already committed.
I did get quite a bit. Did you let your hair grow out during COVID or no?
Well, I color my own hair, so no, I
Got it.
I did
So
not.
before COVID, I went to a girl every 4 months and she would color my hair and straighten my hair.
Hmm.
So like every 4 months, my hair would be straight for like a week or two because it only stays until you wash it again.
Mhm.
Uh, but then once COVID hit, all that closed down. So even after COVID kind of like let up, probably like a year actually, I let my hair grow out for like a year. So my gray hair was probably
Oh
like
shit.
here. Yeah, it actually, and it didn't look bad. It looked bad because this part wasn't gray. There was like a definitive line right here. But the speckling of it looked pretty good. But then my vanity got in the way because I started seeing clients again, like face to face, I didn't want to show up looking ridiculous. So I dyed it again. But I'm just so now I do dye my hair on my own because, well, price, and it was weird with COVID for a second. Like, do we go? Do we not go? I hated wearing my mask for like 2 hours while I'm sitting there. So I just called my mom and I was like, how do I get hair dye from a store, which is obviously what you do?
No, I get it from a hairdresser.
That's what the place that I go is like a high-end hairdresser place. But you can go
Okay.
in and actually buy at the same place that your hairdresser buys.
Okay, so my sister is a hairdresser, and she was the person who initially introduced me to this line of professional products from Redken called Shades.
Got it.
And she's been doing hair for like, I don't know, 25 years or something, 30 years, something like that. And yeah, so she color matched my hair, and I think the one I use is called Caramel or something. And I was telling you, Sabrina, like the thing about me coloring my hair with Shades is a semi-permanent hair color. It's every 2 weeks, and I do have the gray in the back. I have like little pieces in here and there, but if you just because with dark hair especially, it's
Yes.
like natural hair has like a certain shine to it, but when you color it, it does not have that shine anymore.
Yeah.
So I want to keep as much of my natural kind of hair color as possible. So that's why I only color my hairline, and that's where the most of the gray goes. So if you choose to, maybe you can ask your hairdresser, what are my options for red and shade?
Got it. Yeah, I'll ask. But I like that you're telling me that though, because I do all of it. And I don't even like the whole thing. I just go like all around like this length. Um, but I don't even know how much I needed in the back. But that's part of my
Okay.
frustration with it because it's such a mess because my hair's curly. So like trying to get it in there and separate it, it's knotted. It's this whole, oh, But I didn't even think to just do the top. Like, who cares if there's a few in the back?
It it saves you so much, and it looks more natural too. And the majority of your hair, like 90% of it, is still your natural color. And I just do the tips. I don't do like the whole thing. I just do, as the tips are going, I just do a little bit of the tips. Like my hair is in a ponytail. When I come back from the gym, I just go bloop, 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 like along my hairline, and then just let
Got
it
it.
sit for like 30 minutes, and then it dries, and then I shower. So I
No
don't do anything
kidding.
from the back. I don't do anything from here. Literally just my hairline. And I just go a little bit back because I do have some gray that grows like right here. But yeah, I just take this little brush, and a little goes a long, long way. Like one bottle of red can last me for almost a year. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not a
that's
lot. And you
the
have to buy
same.
the
It does last me a while. It's just annoying with the
yeah,
curls to try to do all of that. So I'm going to look into that. That's cool. Thank you. I'm glad that I brought that
of
up. I
course.
don't even know how I even did that. I just learned something. I don't know if our audience is going to learn anything.
Redkin shade. Look into it.
So we are here today, and we each have 3 questions that we're going to be asking each other. Neither one of us know what the other person's asking, so it could be super non-invasive or super personal. We have no idea. So I asked her before we got on the call, who's going first, and she said I can go first. So I'm going to ask the first question. One thing I am going to do that I haven't been doing is I'm going to put this on the screen. Is it going to pop up?
Mm-hmm.
This on the screen so that we know what question we're on. And this will also help me divide it when I divide it later. So question 1 is my turn. Are you ready? Or can you hear me, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If you knew you were going to die in a year, what would you be doing differently and why?
I don't think I would be doing anything differently, to be honest.
I love that. I love that.
I think I would be doing more of what I'm currently doing right now. So hanging out with family members that are here in Sweden, meeting different friends from all over the world. I already am doing all of those things, so I'd be doing more of the things I'm already doing, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Awesome.
Cooking for people, like
Can you tell everybody
yeah.
what you do, by the way?
Yeah, so I work as a coach for women and like a vulnerability, I call it vulnerability true coach. I help people find their true authentic voice and to step into the power because I feel like a lot of women don't really trust themselves. So trust and vulnerability go together. So in order for them to trust themselves, they have to be vulnerable. And a lot of women find it really hard to be vulnerable. So I help them get to that point.
I love that. Awesome.
Yeah.
You're
And
up.
I thank
Go
you.
ahead. Go ahead.
I absolutely love just one-on-one communication with other females. It empowers me, and I hope to empower other women. My question, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was going to
My
ask, do you
question,
work now that COVID's over? Are you working with people one-on-one again or no?
well, not face to face. I mean, if somebody came up to me here in Sweden and we had a conversation and it went really well, and they wanted to work with me, I'm totally open for it, and I'm totally open for whatever opportunities come my way. But right now, all my clients are online, and they're actually all in the U.S. right now. So we'll see what the future holds. I've been in Sweden now for 6.5 weeks, and we'll be here till the end of October. And then after here, we will head to Spain and spend a couple months. And then I want to go to Denmark, and then we'll come back here for Christmas, and then go to Costa Rica to spend like the colder months, and then come back here. So yeah, crazy. But
That's
that's kind of my
awesome.
story. So my question to you is: I love childhood stories. So what is your favorite childhood memory?
Oh my gosh, this is so funny you're asking me because I was just talking about this. So, my dad has always kind of had this persona of or we, I guess, as a family have built him up to be kind of like the brunt of the family, the kind of like abrasive person. And through my learnings and through educating myself and growing knowledge and all of this, one of the things that I bumped into was the 5 love languages and how everybody shows their love differently. And realized very quickly that my dad shows love through acts of service. So he really doesn't show love any other way except for acts of service. So I'm physical touch and I'm also words of affirmation. And he sucked at both of those. So I always viewed it as not getting very much love from my dad. However, over the years and learning and educating myself, I was talking just recently to my fiance about, so growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, we didn't celebrate birthdays or celebrate anything really. So my parents once a year held a slumber party for my sister and I, and like we each got to invite an insane amount of other little girls to our house, like 7 each or something. And my dad turned our huge, like 2.5 car garage that was attached to our house into an enormous room because my mom ran a daycare. So it was like this huge room with like these awesome, beautiful windows he installed and these huge closets. And so anyways, when we had our slumber parties, all the girls would bring over their sleeping bags and blankets and pillows, and we line them all over the floor. And of course, it was super drama filled because it's females. So some of us would be fighting, some of us would be crying, some of us would be gossiping in the corner. It was always all of this, but we loved doing it every year.
So how old were you when it first started, and how old were you when the last time it happened?
Young.
Like 4, 3, 4?
Yeah, my parents converted. So my parents converted into Jehovah's Witnesses when I was maybe like 3. I think they got baptized. Okay. So I don't remember any holidays. And probably when my sister was born, probably like maybe I was 7, maybe I was 8, and she was probably 5 when we started. And then it went all the way up until probably when I started driving is when we stopped, because once you start driving, you're just never at home anymore. So a good 10 years, probably like 8 to 10 years. Wow. We did it. But anyways, there's this one specific time. So my parents also were really good in the yard, like gardening and bushes and like beautiful landscaping. We always had like the best landscaping in the entire neighborhood, and my parents did it themselves. We're Hispanic, so I guess that kind of comes with it. And so they always set up the backyard so awesome. We had all these games like pin the tail on the donkey and like potato sack racing, and we had piñatas, even though piñatas later in the JW world were not a good thing. We had piñatas. And so the one thing that I was just telling the story about was my dad. Not like the most social person in the entire world, but my dad would help with the games. And one of my favorite things was he would do the piñata up and down. And I remember he would whenever he would swear or say something like not so nice, and he didn't want all of us white folks, because our congregation was all white people. So for those of you that don't know, these slumber parties we had were all Jehovah's Witnesses, because as Jehovah's Witnesses, you only hang out with Jehovah's Witnesses. So whenever he would get like a little frustrated, he's around white people and he's around JWs, he would say his frustration in Spanish. So none of us would understand, including us. We wouldn't understand what he was saying, even his own kids. So I remember a few times where like the little girl almost like hit him or like hit somebody else, and he would say something in Spanish. Probably something like, oh my God, or just something like I'm sure he wasn't like saying the F word or anything, But I remember a few times, and I remember in my head kind of laughing, but also being super grateful that he was there, helping with the string and helping us set up the bat. My mom would put on the little blindfold and turn us around. And sometimes he'd make it really hard for like the girls that were a little taller, and then he'd make it a little easier for girls that were a little smaller. So just kind of showing empathy towards the situation was really cool. And although I didn't quite know the language of what it was at the moment, I distinctively remember feeling like happy. Yeah. But that was huge for me. And I loved those parties. And now looking back at how much work it probably was, my mom spent tons of money on the gifts, like the gift bags and the food, and setting up all of the games in order so that it wasn't total chaos. Definitely something that was really cool. Because she didn't have to do that.
Wow.
None of the other families did that. My family was the only family that had like that big, like a big thing, a big party for my sister and I both together, which was really cool.
Your parents seem like the dream parents. Gosh.
It was really cool.
Very, very cool. I love that. And
yeah,
what a cool story.
Yeah,
very memorable.
I'm definitely grateful for it now that I've come in contact with, more JWs that aren't necessarily JWs anymore, because I didn't realize how well my parents were really strict. Actually, my parents were really strict, but they did do cool things. They did stuff like that, that other JWs didn't necessarily do. So definitely a memory that I cherish a lot. And also just kind of thinking back of like all the drama that went through with it. Like one of the girls always got sent home. One of them always wanted to go home. And then they still did it. Like, even though all of that, my mom would have to pull somebody aside, have a talk with like a couple of us who were being mean or whatever it was, but they still did it.
Did you guys have invitations, like formal invitations that you mailed?
Yes. Yeah.
What? It was like a birthday party, but not a birthday party.
Yeah. We would go to the store, like Walmart or something. And my sister and I would usually, depending on how old we were, I remember as we got older, we wrote them out. But I'm sure when we were younger, my parents wrote them out. But we would have to actually write them out in our crappy handwriting and mail them. Like little ones from Walmart, like you are invited to, and have like little balloons on it or something.
Of course.
Yeah. It was really cool.
I love it.
Yeah, it kind of like took the play, and that was kind of how my parents made me feel better, or made us feel better, as far as not celebrating the holidays. We knew that we didn't do birthdays, we didn't do Christmas, but every year we would be able to have a slumber party, and that was always really cool. So it's awesome. Kind of how and a lot of it is probably because they grew up in the world. So if you think about it, they probably to some point missed the holidays.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. My phone looks like it's going to die. I'm just going to grab a little charger. Okay. All right. You can go ahead.
All right. Question number 3. You ready?
Yes.
If you could get rid of one evil in the world, what would it be and why?
Greed.
Ooh, greed. That's a good one. Why?
Because I feel that because I feel like greed feeds on, well,
you answered that so fast.
I do, because I feel that I've known so many people that are just really greedy, and I always say that there's 2 types of people in the world. There's givers and there's takers, and the people that are takers not only take your money. It's not about taking finances. It's about taking energy. It's about taking time. It's about taking other things that just drain you. And sometimes you can even have a conversation with somebody on the phone and you talk to them for 30 minutes and you're like, "God, what the fuck?" Like you just feel so exhausted. And
Yeah.
it's for me, like greed has to do with just taking, taking, taking.
Got
And
it.
greed also has to do with like things being just stolen from the resources from the world, like plants and just everything else. So I was also thinking fear. Fear is something that is really high right now with the pandemic because a lot of traumas have surfaced. People have been staying home for an entire year and maybe they've never actually sat with their trauma before. So now they finally sat with their trauma for a year. Maybe something happened to them when they were a child or a teenager that they've never really gotten a chance to talk to. And right now it's really bad. So greed and fear, I think, yeah, or I know that's two, but those are the things I would love to eliminate. I think that the world would be so much better.
I think it's interesting that you're correlating greed with fear or greed
Yeah.
with energy. I've never even
Yeah.
thought of that before.
Yeah, it's for me it actually I'd rather have somebody steal money from me than steal my energy because my energy for me is very sacred and it's very special. Money is a form of energy that's interchanged, and if somebody takes $100 from me, I can get it back. The energy that they've taken from me, sometimes it just harnesses in your soul for a really long time, and it sits with you. Maybe you had a bad conversation with a partner, with a parent, and you remember it 10 years later. If somebody stole $100 from you, that's easily going to be replaced.
Yeah.
So that for me is something that's really, really serious because it's happened to me so many times, and I have set boundaries now, and it does not happen to me anymore. But yeah, taking is something that I faced a lot in my life.
How do you I love that I not love, but it's interesting that you're bringing up the concept of the phone and
Mm,
what the fuck when when they take all of your time. How there's I know that this is a huge thing. I want to say especially within the female population
mm,
where we have friends who we stay on the phone with for hours sometimes and you get nothing, zero from the
mm, mhm.
conversation. When you first started figuring this out, how did you combat those situations? Did you have a talk with them? Did you just cut them off? How did you first start to fix that issue?
So I have cut off people before just because I think there's friends for a day, there's friends for a season, and then there's friends for a lifetime. And unfortunately, sometimes we keep those seasonal friends way too long. Maybe she was your friend in college, you were a freshman, and now you're 35 years old, and she probably shouldn't be your friend anymore, and you've extended it. So, like actually getting to the point because it's not just like one bad toxic thing that happens that you're just like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. It's several bad things that have happened. And it kind of just fades out into the sand. Like you kind of stop texting each other and it just kind of diminishes. So it's actually not like blocking or anything like that, but it's just like fading away and not even responding. And they kind of get the point. I have, however, have had childhood friends that I still keep in contact with, even though the conversations can be very draining. I know going into the conversation, like I could possibly be this person's only close friend right now that they trust. I had a friend recently whose husband passed, and I had like a 2 hour long conversation with her. But I knew going into the conversation that she needs somebody, and we've been friends. She's my oldest childhood Jehovah's Witness, ex Jehovah's Witness friend. And I knew, and Ben is just was like, "Why are you talking to her? Why?" And it's to the point where you feel bad and you are still friends with her. She has never done anything to me, but every conversation I've had with her, even besides her husband passing, has just been like really draining and just give. She'll ask about me probably like 15 minutes out of the hour long conversation I'll have with her. This time
Wow.
was, like I said, 2 hours. So it is a little bit of a giving, but it's or she's taking from me because I'm the one who's always like, okay, what's going on here? And then the thing is too, drama seeks more drama.
Yeah.
So usually people that are in this crazy drama filled world, they're going to want to make drama in your world, and they're
Yeah.
going to surround themselves with other people with drama.
Yeah.
So by cutting somebody off that has drama, you're like liberating yourself from so much shit.
Yeah.
You would be blown away. And sure, you can be like, there comes a point where you feel bad about it. You're like, gosh, I've been friends with this person for 20 years. I probably shouldn't like just stop being their friend, but you should. Like, you
Yeah.
need to stand up for yourself and trust yourself, because you've been saying to yourself, I probably shouldn't be friends with this person for the last 5 years. Like,
Yeah.
believe yourself. There's a
Yeah.
reason your inner self is saying these things. You should
Yeah.
be friends with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that not only I face now, but talking to clients, they feel bad for letting friends go because, like I said, they've been friends with them for so long, even though they're not serving them anymore. And I'm not saying every single friend should just be like equal 50-50 and you guys should just like explode together. But it comes to the point, it comes to the point where if you're doing all these things for your friend, if you're the one who's constantly calling, if you're the one who's constantly making plans, and the only time she calls you is to bitch or to talk
Mm.
about a boyfriend or an ex-boyfriend or a certain situation, you need to be like, no, it's just not gonna happen. And instead of like cutting ties with her, just don't respond. That's how I've done it before. Just don't even like message, and it'll just kind of draw out into the sand and fade away.
Yeah, 100%. I've had to do this with a few people, and I still think about it. It's frustrating sometimes, but that you're 100% right with the amount of drama that you're going to like release is
Mm-hmm.
so freeing. I can't even tell you how many hours, like hours I've spent on the phone with some of these people. And I'm always the helper. So I'm always the one that's like trying to fix, and they ask for advice, and I go through all the listening to the whole story bit by bit and second by second, give my honest opinion and my honest prescription for what I think they should do. And over the years, what became so frustrating for me, as I'm learning, about codependency and empathy, but also just coming to my own of the frustration of asking for my advice like 100 times and then not taking the advice 100 times
Mm.
and then coming back to me with the new drama that just occurred because you didn't listen to my advice
Mm-hmm.
is so frustrating. And I can actually remember distinctively a few conversations where I literally, like, I don't want to say lost it. I didn't like start swearing and freaking out, but literally was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I told them, I'm not doing this with you anymore. Especially, as I started growing into this persona of being a coach and like helping other
Mm-hmm.
people, it
Mm-hmm.
just looks bad. It just looks bad if my closest friends are just total drama feeding frenzy beasts. It doesn't align with who I am as a person. And I think a lot of what individuals need to do is figure out, where they're aligned, what they want, and make sure that your friends are in a similar field as you as far as where you're trying to live
Mm.
mentally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mentally.
I wanted to add something to my last comment too
Yeah.
with greed. I think people that are constantly wanting and taking, they can never have enough. There's never going to be enough. So whether it's like having the biggest house, having the fanciest cars, having the biggest everything, the most amount of clothes, there's never going to be an enough.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody who is grateful, you can be fine with the outfit that you're wearing and like living in a car. It's like it's a completely different different scenario. Yeah, between the giver and the taker. So, and then another thing too, when I wanted to add with giving, when somebody is draining your energy, you have that call for 1 hour and they're taking. It doesn't make you feel like the best. Your self-esteem goes down versus the person that just vomited on you. Their self-esteem is disgusting for me. Like taking is, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just
Yeah.
thought of that
And a
too.
lot of times you're giving
My turn.
compliments. You're giving them validation.
True.
So you're taking from you and giving to them. And then a lot of times they're not giving it back to you.
Exactly.
Hey, I do
So
want
true.
to touch on something. And we're on schedule, so we can kind of dive into this. But
Okay, cool.
I don't want to say I disagree with you, but I want to hear more on what you just said as far as being comfortable. A person who's not greedy, or a person who is greedy, wants more and always wants more and is never happy. And then a person who's not is okay living in a car and with the clothes on their back. So yes, I 100% agree with that. But what is your viewpoint as far as just wanting more, but not necessarily from a greedy standpoint?
I would have to ask, like, what more is it that you want?
Well,
I
I
think there's
mean,
a difference between like
because I view
it.
more as, for instance, if we're talking monetary value, when I
Mhm.
think more, I think fancier car, fancier house, fancier clothes. Okay, so that's what you were kind of talking about. However, money doesn't just buy you cars and
No,
houses and clothes, it also buys you freedom.
absolutely. So I think that's a completely different thing. I
Okay.
think money is a beautiful energy that you can actually put toward good or evil. And I think making money is a beautiful thing, and I think that it's a necessary evil. I mean, it's
Yeah.
something that as a Jehovah's Witness, we were taught to kind of hate money.
Yeah.
So I have tried to shift my mindset when it comes to actually we had clients that say I love making money, so I'm trying to harness that kind of energy. Like I love making money to the point where you just said, to actually create the freedom that I want, because I've been able to travel for the last 7 months to go to 5 different countries. I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have the means to. But
Exactly.
does that mean that I want to have a 5,000 square foot home and a Rolls Royce in my no, like I don't need a Louis Vuitton new shoes or crazy purses and all that stuff. So there's a difference. I think money buys freedom, but money also creates opportunities,
Yeah.
opportunities that you can't get if you're not earning money, because
Yeah.
you can't create, like, let's be honest, to make your business even more advanced, more better, you'd have to take courses, you're going to have to take different kind of things to make it a bigger and better opportunities. But you're doing that because you can help more people if you had a bigger and better way of coaching. Because
Exactly.
if you're a very small company and and you can only help so many people and you can only do so much. But if you have lots of education, if you have other people behind you, that all can make it so much more possible for you to help more people. So absolutely, money is can be a very beautiful thing.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because a lot of times, and especially if talking to people who are more religious, a lot of times money is viewed as, when you start talking about money or um, I guess kind of not having a humble viewpoint on it,
Hmm.
people are kind of nudged the wrong way. And I feel as if that's unfair because the things that I want to do in my life and create in my life to give back needs money. It does. It
Absolutely.
needs money, like,
Absolutely.
to be able to create the retreats that I'm envisioning, or opening up a home for women who are enduring narcissistic abuse. How am I going to be able to manufacture these dreams and these desires without money? And so it's important to make sure that greed isn't associated with money, because it's not just money, it's what you're doing with the money, and it's the actions and the energy, like you said, that go along with that work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Greed can come to everything. I mean, you can be greedy with your food and just be a binge eater if you wanted to be, or with anything. You can just have way too much of something and just be
Yeah,
greedy about that. Like, I need to have every single pan that Calphalon makes because I just love that brand and I want it. Like,
yeah,
for me, that's like, do you really need it?
yeah,
It it's That's for me, the just there's no cap.
yeah,
And but with, like I said, with money, it's a completely different. It can go both ways. It can be like
exactly,
create freedom, but then it can also create this like narcissistic kind of energy that is just very toxic.
exactly,
And
exactly.
your father, he showed you love with acts of services. My father showed me love with money. So he showed us love by buying us things, by providing us a nice house, by buying all the things we wanted. So that was his way of showing us money. So it wasn't at all a negative way, I would say, but it was that's literally like how I only see how my father ever showed us love. And his emotions are all shut off because of his childhood. But yeah, that's a whole nother story. And in my culture, in my Middle Eastern culture, that's a very common thing for the men to be very prideful with the money, and like, this is how I'm going to show love to my family because I'm this is how my father and my grandfather have done it. They worked really hard and they provided, and that's all we're good for. That's all the
Yeah,
men are good for, is making the money and getting all the family needs and necessities.
yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Um, so yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate where that conversation went.
Hmm.
Coming from the background that I came from religiously, and then the narcissistic relationship that I endured, it was really tough for me because I needed money to get out,
Hmm.
and fighting that deep, unconscious feeling of being undeserving of having an abundant amount of money felt weird. It felt
Hmm.
weird. I didn't feel like I needed it. Like, do I really need money? Can't I just sit here and just be complacent with the life that I have now? And I had to make a real hard decision on being okay with making money to leave, even though I wasn't being beat, even though my life wasn't being threatened, even though I could have lived like that for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And I distinctly remember a cognitive dissonance between being okay with creating more wealth for myself and still being a good person. That
Hmm.
was really tough for me. That was really tough for me. And I have to continue to remind myself that money is good. It is good.
Absolutely.
It's not, it becomes bad when you're doing things that not when you're not giving back, or when you're doing things that aren't with the money that aren't good.
Uh, and essentially, money makes you more of who you are. So if you're already like some psycho crazy person that spends money frivolously, even before you were making 100 grand a year or something like that, the more money you make, the more money you're gonna spend.
Exactly.
And it doesn't even matter. So if you're already somebody who saves or who budget shops, you're gonna allow yourself to buy nicer things on occasion, but you're
Yeah.
gonna save a lot of your money too. So it's not like money changes people. No, it actually makes you more of who you are. So if
Yeah.
you, yeah, just just remember that.
Yeah. 100%. Who's next? I think we're on question 5. Is that you or me?
Yeah, it's my turn for you.
Okay, go ahead.
So, are you closer to your mom or dad, first of all?
My mom.
Okay, so if you were to ask your father one question that's been weighing on your mind and body for years, maybe decades, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. If I could ask my dad any question, I don't even know. Um, it would
Is
probably be
there,
a feeling question. Maybe I would ask him like how, so the biggest thing was, when I was disfellowshipped for the second time as a Jehovah's Witness, I got pregnant when I was 20, uh,
hmm,
and was disfellowshipped for a second time. And when I say disfellowship, for those of you that aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, that means you're disassociated. So the entire congregation cuts you off. Um, when I was disfellowshipped for the second time, my parents, my dad, my parents, because they're a unit, asked me to leave the home. And granted, they recanted that the next day. But by then, the damage had already been done mentally, emotionally. I already didn't feel comfortable. I had been disfellowshipped. This is going to be a second time being disfellowshipped. So knowing that I was going to put that a stamp on our family name again. And we had just moved to a new congregation. We had moved states.
oh
So I
shit.
had already like shamed their name in Chicago. Now I was going to shame their name again in North Carolina. And I didn't feel comfortable doing that. I felt bad. I felt really, because I have empathy. So I felt bad as a female doing that to my family again. And what's
Question, Sabrina. Did your family move states because of your situation?
no, they had already no, not at all.
Okay,
They
okay.
my grandparents offered them land where so all my
I see.
family lives on the same street now.
Oh
Like
wow.
the whole
Okay.
family. Um Aunts, uncles, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, they live on the same street.
Jeez.
Yeah, my grandparents back in 1982, the year I was born, or a year after, bought like 8, 9, 10 acres of land in North Carolina. And they've been slowly convincing all the family to move on this acreage. And now their driveway, which was just their driveway to their house, is now their last name, which is really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool. So that didn't have anything to do with it. And my disfellowshipping the first time wasn't bad. I'm the one that came forward. Well, I came forward both times, but the second time was obvious I was pregnant. But I did it. I didn't get caught. It wasn't like I got told on and it was this whole drama filled. I actually went to my parents and I said, hey, I'm going to confess my sins. I've done some things and I don't feel comfortable with it. I'm trying to get right with Jehovah. And it came from like a loving spot. And my parents totally, I stayed in their house. They moved me into the basement and
How old were you the first time?
18.
18. Okay, then you got disfellowshipped when you were 20. So you
Yeah.
got reinstated pretty quickly.
Yeah. I was reinstated 6 months to the day.
Wow.
Yeah. 6 months to the day. And, and then I literally got pregnant 6 months later.
Wow.
uh, so that doesn't line up. Maybe I was 19. I don't know how that fell, but I was pregnant by the time I was 20. So where was I getting at this? What was I talking about? Oh, a question from my
into your
dad.
parent.
So I know how I felt during that whole thing. Obviously, I got pregnant. I moved back to Chicago, and they didn't speak to me. They did it right as a Jehovah's Witness. They followed faithfully, and they cut off all communication with me. It was their first grandchild, and their oldest daughter having their first grandchild, and he's a boy. And not that takes away from a girl. I don't know why I said it like that. I'm sorry. And and I had the baby. I gave birth. We called them, no answer. And then we raised him, or I raised him, whatever. His dad wound up leaving. Well, his dad didn't leave. What happened with that was the congregation, which I don't know if I already told you this, but the congregation actually told me we were going to the Kingdom Hall maybe 4 or 5 months after Elijah was born. And people in the congregation were getting confused. I think I already told you this. We're getting confused because we looked like we were married, but we weren't married because we would go in together. And and we were also living together, but we were not having sex, but we weren't having sex also because I just had a baby. But in my head, we weren't having sex. So we were going together. We were sitting together and we looked like a family, but I was disfellowshipped. So it was confusing the servants in the congregation, the people in the congregation, as to what was going on. So the elders sat down with me and they said, hey, listen, with me only. And they said, hey, listen, you need to make a decision. If you're going to be with him, with the father, you need to marry him, or you need to break it off. You can't date him. You can't do both. So at the time I was trying to get back. I was trying to dive in. I was a new mom. I didn't have any conversation with my parents. It was horrible. It was a very detrimental, trauma-filled time for me. And money was low. I mean, there was so much stuff. There was so much stuff that was going on. And I broke up with his dad. I was trying to do the right thing. I didn't want to just marry him because I had a baby. I prayed to Jehovah. And granted, now looking back, it was a good idea that I left him. I was not in love with him. I couldn't be with him. Just seeing him now, not that there was anything wrong with him. I just didn't, it wasn't a thing. So, but when I broke up with him, he left the state. He left the state, stopped paying me child support. So now I'm by myself. And whether or not my parents knew that or not, I don't know if I told them. I don't know if I, sent them a message or something and said I was alone. I don't know if they knew I was alone. But then I eventually got reinstated. But my question would probably be regarding that. It would probably be I know how I felt. I was devastated, and then having to find love in the whole thing was like a mind fuck. You have to realize that they're doing it because they love Jehovah. They're doing it to be faithful. They're doing it to gain everlasting life. But yes, and you're also abandoning your kid. So I don't know. I feel as if there was an apology at one point. I feel there was a side conversation at some point where it was hey, sorry about that. Maybe in a roundabout way, but I don't know if there was, but I definitively know that there was never a conversation about it, which I think is kind of fucked up. And I don't want to bring it up because I did it. You can't be mad at somebody for following the rules that are in place when you're the one that broke the rules. So it's uncomfortable for me to be hey, you did all the things that you were supposed to do correctly according to the faith. How dare you? I already knew what was going to happen. When you have sex before marriage, there's a probability of getting pregnant. So how do you even bring that up in a way that wouldn't make them feel guilty? Because there's nothing to feel guilty about, according to them. So it's awkward. It's awkward to bring it up.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
If your parents weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, how do you think the reaction would have been to your pregnancy?
Oh, totally different, especially for my mom.
Hmm.
I don't know about my dad. Um, because my dad is so like gung ho about the religion,
Hmm.
like to an extreme. So I don't know. I don't see that side of my dad to know how he would have been. But
Hmm.
I like to think that it would have been different from him, but 100% different from my mom. My mom would have been super excited and loving and
Wow.
caring and never would have even brought up for me to leave the house.
Wow.
It wouldn't have even been a question to leave the house. Um,
It's it's so sad that they put their feelings away and they've upheld these new feelings that were created by men to then make their daughter feel so shameful, which you hold on to today, which has led you to a broken kind of relationship with your parents. And this is a crucial point in your life where you are pregnant and you really need them. And unfortunately, being disfellowshipped is never, there's never a perfect time, but being pregnant at such a young age and then the boyfriend leaving it, the whole situation is like that's when you need your parents the most, and they weren't there.
yeah,
And it was only because of the man-made rules with the cults.
yeah,
So it's really sad that this has happened, and it's very fortunate that that your parents are better people underneath the brainwashing, because
mhm,
that makes you really love them and appreciate them in a whole new way.
yeah.
And
And,
I
and
I
and not
commend you for
only
that.
that, but I like minus the religion, I, I this is tough for me to say because of my view on just religion in a whole.
Hmm.
However, there is a part of me that appreciates individuals who like believe in something.
Hmm.
There are and like believe in something and then follow the rules. I think that there is and life is gray. Life is not all black and white. And see, this is tough for me to say because I don't agree with it. So, how do you agree with something that you don't agree with? But if you can take into consideration my background and me pulling forward or projecting my background into the conversation right now, I appreciate that they like stuck up for what they believed in. That's a form of having boundaries. That's a form of, you know, saying something and then doing what you say
Hmm.
and following through with it. And even though I don't agree with the platform, the foundation in which it stands, I think that there's not enough people that do that, where they have rules and they have standards and then they actually follow through with what they say. And even just look at me as far as my narcissistic abuse that I endured for 13 years. I would constantly say things. I'm going to do this if you don't do that, and I'm going to do this if you don't do that. And I didn't do any of those things. I consistently let my boundaries be punched all over the place, black and
Hmm.
blue, and didn't stick with what I ultimately wanted in my life, because of lack of boundaries, because of lack of being able to stand up for what I believe in. Granted, I didn't have a whole organization behind me, to lean on. So that's a little bit different. I know that anytime my parents were irritated or frustrated or crying or, they could speak to somebody if they chose to. Whether or not they did or not, I have no idea, but they could have. They could have gone to the Bible for help. They could have gone in prayer. They could have sat down with the sisters. My mom could have sat down with the sisters and had a little cry. I couldn't do that. So in that way it's different. But I have a hard time being mad. I'm sad sometimes. I'm sad when I talk about it, but I'm really not mad because I totally get it. I totally get it 100%. And I appreciate that they did it. I appreciate that they did it, even though, that's, even though I don't agree with it,
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Another question.
Yeah.
Do you believe the Jehovah's Witnesses are brainwashed?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not their fault. Like, how do you
No.
can't get mad at somebody? Like,
No,
that would be like being
I'm
mad
right there.
Okay.
I'm right there with you.
Because that'd be like when I was in my narcissistic abusive relationship and like thinking it was love, and all my girlfriends were like, leave, just leave. Not all my girlfriends. I had 2 at the time because I didn't have any friends. But just leave. Why don't you just leave? Yeah, got it. Cool, leave.
Not that easy.
What the fuck does that mean? Where do I go? What do I do if I leave this? Well, who am I? Or what am I? Or who do I belong to? Or, they've dedicated their entire life to that religion. Plus, add this story on. They like have this whole story of them disassociated from their oldest daughter and not ever missing their grandchild growing up based on a religion. How do you say like, oh, sorry, sorry about that, didn't know, or we fucked up, excuse us, glad everything worked out okay for you. It could have gone really bad. I could have, like, I can't even tell you how many times suicide went through my head when I was early pregnant, or running away, or jumping off a bridge, or doing drugs. I thought about getting wasted all the time while I was pregnant because I just wanted it to all go away. And what do you see on the TV? You see on the TV that when you're in that spot, when you're feeling that bad, you do drugs, you get high, you drink. And it could have gone a totally different direction. Granted, it didn't, but because of the situation and because of what happened and the way that I was just discarded, it could have gone horribly. And so to say like, oh yeah, sorry about that, it's just kidding, or after all is said and done, and my 17-year-old, my son is now 17, and now I don't need any assistance. Now they're going to come back and say, oh yeah, that was really stupid of us. That's difficult. That's difficult to say. That's like a huge ego. That's like a huge hit to the, what would that be called?
Yeah, the ego.
Yeah. So how do you do that now? So even if they wanted to leave, even if they right now are starting to view it as like, oh, I don't really know about this whole thing. And everyone said the end was coming during COVID and now we're all alive and we're all okay. You know very well that was a conversation. They still have this story now on top of everything else of like, they have to hang on tight in order for it to all make sense, because how do you even explain that?
Can I ask, do either of your parents have any kind of arthritis dealing with currently that has happened maybe in the last 20 years ever since your disfellowshipping?
Wait, what do you mean?
I truly believe that suppressed trauma, especially something like this, could in turn turn into cancer, can turn into an autoimmune disorder, can turn into something physically wrong. So I'm asking, in the last like 20 years, has something happened, metastasized into something that could possibly be even linked to the trauma that was held on to when you got disfellowship between your parents?
My parents?
Mm-hmm.
No, zero.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you feel that they are the same parents that you have now that when you had pre-disfellowshipping, like 19 years?
No, I feel like they've definitely gotten less strict.
Okay.
You know, they still,
Maybe because they lost you twice, and maybe they just don't want to lose you again.
yeah, they like they speak to me even though they know, you know,
You're not supposed to. Yeah.
and they also speak to my brother, who's like openly just does whatever the frick he wants to do. He does no rule.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
So, but there's never been a conversation, and that's what's so frustrating about that whole thing is there's never been a conversation. So I don't even know where I stand. You know, I don't know if I'm good or if just one day, you know, 62 days from now, I'm just going to get dropped out of the family will, or, you know, to say, not that there is.
Well, and why would you feel that way?
Because they're still Jehovah's Witnesses. So I don't know what the boundaries are. The boundaries have never been spoken about. So, you know, what am I allowed to talk about and not allowed to talk about? What am I, you know, like in this conversation, could this conversation that we're having live on Facebook right now be the thing that cuts me off? Like it's constant walking on eggshells as to what the boundaries are that they have because they're invisible. So I don't even know. And it's very, it's frustrating. Like even having conversations with them, like, can I talk about sex or should I not talk about sex? Can I talk about kissing? Can I talk about, you know, getting married or not getting married? Like what's the line that they have that's invisible so I don't walk over it, or so that I do walk over it and see what happens. But at least I know it was there. Same with the pregnancy thing.
Do you feel like you've been tiptoeing around conversations with them since they have? Okay.
Yes. And that's what's frustrating about it. It's like, I don't know what's better. I don't know if it was better being disfellowshipped and having zero contact. And then there's like a definitive line, but at least I know. Or if it's better to have a relationship, but you don't really know what the rules are to the relationship.
When did they come back into your life?
When my son was like 3 or something, when I got reinstated.
And okay. And how long were you active for?
I'm still active, apparently. Like I've never done anything.
No, how often are you going to the meetings? And if you're still active?
No.
Okay.
Oh, years. I don't know.
Okay.
Like I haven't my son is 17, so probably stopped when he was 5 or 6.
Okay. And so has the conversation ever been with them about going back to the Kingdom Hall and being active?
Oh yeah, they talk about it. They talk about it all the time. And then I just kind of like, yeah.
So I think the gates are open for you to talk about them with anything. If it's not like you're disfellowshipped and they're just trying to talk to you again, and now you know you barely can talk. Your parents seem like cool people from the story that you just told me.
Yes,
and I feel like you can get away with more than you can.
Yeah, and I agree with you. When I was 30 years old, so 8 years ago, I had done the Landmark Forum. Do you know what the Landmark Forum is?
No.
Okay, so it's a crazy course on basically conscious and unconscious. It's very popular. You should do it if you haven't done it. But I did the whole curriculum. So they have there's like 6 classes. It's thousands of dollars. And not thousands of dollars, a few $1,000s to do the whole thing. I'm like making it sound like it's like 20 grand or something. It's like a few thousand. But for me, it was a lot because I had no money. So, but during that course, it's all action-based, which is how my stuff is that I do now, my coaching, it's all action-based. So one of the things that they have you go through is closing up any areas of your life that are like causing you turmoil. And at that point, my son was like 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know. And obviously the most obvious one was religion. And I had, stopped going, and my parents knew, but like didn't know. And I was leading this whole double life of like, still going to the assemblies, but not going to meetings, or I did go to the memorial, but didn't go to the meeting, whatever. And so I one of the things that I did, you know, because it's all action based, is call. They make you call people, and what everyone's different. You know, not everyone's a Jehovah's Witness, so everyone's doing their own thing with their own people, with grandparents or kids or, you know, friggin' exes that left a long time ago that there's no closure. So mine was my parents. So I called them. I called both of them, including my sister, 3 separate phone calls for like an hour long, and thanked them for being so amazing. And then also blatantly told them that I am no longer, you know, going to meetings, no longer practicing. And I put it in their hands as to whether or not they would continue speaking to me or not. I said, I completely understand the situation that we're in. I completely understand that you're a Jehovah's Witness and you have rules to follow. So I'm letting you know 100% where I stand. So there's no question. And I'm going to assume that as long as the conversation is still open, that we're all good. At any point, if you want to close the conversation, just let me know. And like, we're totally fine. We're totally good. I know you still love me. And I know that you're just following in the path of being a Jehovah's Witness. And everything was good. Lots of tears, obviously, lots of crying with my dad also. My dad got super emotional. My mom got super emotional. All 3 separate phone calls. And they kept talking to me. They kept talking to me. So, but for me, I think the issue is that so much time has gone by, one.
Of course.
Number 2, when I had that conversation, I was still in like the early workings of being with my ex-narcissist, but I wasn't living with him. I was just like dating him. So I was living on my own when we had that conversation. So since then, I moved in with my ex, was engaged to my ex, was obviously living in sin, then broke off that engagement, then started a new relationship with the man I'm with now. In between, obviously, I dated a few people that they don't know about. Doesn't matter, but I'm sure they assume. And now I'm living with this man and engaged to this man. So many other like non-JW sinful things have happened since that conversation that I'm just like kind of in a lull of uncertainty. And it doesn't frustrate me when I don't think about it. But, you know, talking about it here with you, yeah, it's frustrating. You know?
But you're living a normal life, and you're in the very few percentile in the universe that actually feel like they're living with purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like less than 10%. I feel like every single person I'm speaking to is just, they're not doing what their heart is telling them to do as far as a job is concerned. They might be earning a lot of money at their career and they don't want to quit, or maybe they feel like they have a certain passion, but they don't want to put the time and the energy to create something, because it does take time and energy and money, if possible, to create something that's sturdy, that's going to be something that you could live for and do. And passion is in pursuing something that you feel like is your purpose, is different than having a career. And I don't know about you, Sabrina, but I feel like you are in the same position as me, where living in this purpose that you're living in, I feel like it's not something that you're like, oh, when I retire from doing this, I'm going to be living here or there. And it's something that you're just like, I'm going to do this to the day I die.
Yeah,
And
100%.
every year, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get wiser. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get fiercer. I'm going to be able to help more people in the most profound way. And I'm just going to be, and with the resources that I'm getting, I'm going to be able to build in like a really strong foundation. And then I'm going to leave a legacy, or I'm going to leave something that my future self or other people underneath me will be able to continue as when I pass. So it's a completely different mindset. So I'm very proud of you for doing this, because I think that what you're doing is so unique and it's so profound, and I've never met someone like you before. So I feel privileged and honored that I'm speaking to you right now, especially that we come from the same background, and you're working in this very special niche, which is really, really sought after. And yeah, you're doing a fantastic job with it. Plus you have an awesome fiance or boyfriend. Dane is just awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy for sure. I I appreciate that he was brought into my life. It's I don't even know how it happened. And that's one of the things that one of the reasons why I throw myself into the groups as far as females go with narcissistic abuse, because when you're in those situations, you don't realize, or you don't think you're ever going to find somebody who appreciates you, because you're so bogged down with all of these words of unworthiness. And literally within, it was like a year to the day almost. It was 3 days shy of a year after I left that I met Dane for the first time. That's how quickly it turned around. And his, oh, I'm gonna get emotional again. His patience with dealing with the triggers, the PTSD that I endured afterwards. I did a lot of self-development, during that year, and even prior, obviously, for years before I left. And that's why I was so strong. That's how I was able to leave. That's how I was able to create a company, under the ground, and get out the way that I did, basically escaped. And I did a lot of healing over that year, but you don't realize how much you haven't healed until you link up with another person. And then they start to pull things out of you that
I'm sorry.
you didn't realize that you had. And the patience that he had with me through all of that, I can't even tell you how many breakdowns I had, how many passive aggressive behaviors, because that is what I had in the past. It's cool to heal on your own, and when you're the only person you're dealing with, but those past experiences of how to deal with somebody pop back up when somebody else pops into your life. And he was incredibly patient with me and calm. And I was a firecracker, because by the time I left, I had been ingrained with being such a aggressive fighter. When you're living with a narcissist, you have to be an aggressive fighter to get out. You can't be submissive the whole time, all the way through. Once you start finding your power, you don't just snail your way around and then just fall out of the relationship. To get out, you have to build a power and a confidence within you. But I was overcompensating so much because my ex was such a powerful force to reckon with, verbally, emotionally, and mentally. I had become a horrible person, verbally, because I had to. It was my defense mechanism. And then when I found Dane and him saying things, not even realizing, we had a huge trauma. I had a huge trauma associated with him asking me where the keys are, where I would literally break down into tears, total defensiveness, and literally start screaming defensively, not just not just screaming, but defensively saying things, because he asked me where the keys are, because it was a huge trigger from my last relationship of constantly being blamed for things, like lost keys. And working through the silliest things. And he did that. He did that with me.
Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
For real. It's so dumb. Anybody else would have been holy psychoness. You are absolutely insane. I asked you where the keys are. Are you serious right now?
Right.
And then a lot of that was also communication. I had to communicate that. I had to explain my past situations, and because of the education that I had, because of all of the books that I read, I was able to pinpoint and realize and say hey, listen, when a question like that was asked, it would turn into a 2-day, you know, stabbing fest of you're unorganized, you're dumb, you know, you're messy, you don't know anything. Any other girl would be, other girls are more organized than you are. I can't believe I'm with such an unorganized woman. It would turn into stuff like that. It's just completely unnecessary, and getting beat down with stuff like that just for misplaced, never lost the keys, just misplaced the keys. It was a huge trauma response to that. It was insane. And he sat there with me and and endured all of that with me. And, you know, and now I'm good. You know, now it barely happens 3 years later. You know, now I'm normal myself, and I'm back to being Sabrina, who's like calm and loving and nice and sweet and patient. It's taken some time. Is it my turn to ask you? Is this the last question, by the way?
Yeah, both of our last questions.
Okay. So wait, do I still have one more?
I think you have one more and I have one more.
Okay, so now it's your turn. Okay. I want to hear your disfellowshipping story. I don't even know it.
Oh, my disfellowshipping story.
Yeah.
So I was married to, I wouldn't say he was quite a narcissist, but he was a good guy. He was just very insecure about his physical appearance. He was 6'4", didn't like the fact that he was super tall. He had smaller legs and was really insecure about his legs, even though he worked out and he had like a broader chest. He was German and he had a bigger nose. I'm drawing him up to be this like weirdo looking, but he was actually an attractive guy. Just had some features that he was insecure about. Didn't have the best teeth because his parents didn't have money to get braces when he was younger, so he didn't want to ask for them. So he threw, and another thing, so his mom actually took him out of, after middle school, he homeschooled for high school because his mom didn't want him to get high school influence, and she did not want him to get bullied. So he homeschooled for high school, and his mom praised him like he couldn't do anything wrong. He was like the golden child. And that sets your child up for failure. So he was a very insecure person, and he threw all his insecurities on me. Like I couldn't talk to men more than like a second. I couldn't have conversations with like the cashier at the grocery store. I couldn't really have friends in general. Like there was always questions about why I was doing this, why I was doing that. There was like no trust, and he never wanted to do anything. Sometimes when people would invite us over, he would say, we're busy. And being busy was being at home. He was just didn't want to do anything. Like I wanted to go to Chicago for a weekend, I remember. He's like, why? Because we were living in Michigan at the time. I was living in Michigan at the time. And he's like, why would we go to Chicago? It's a big city. When you go on vacation, you want to like be on a beach or something. Like, no, that's not a place to go on vacation. Anyways, he was super, super boring. Very boring person. So I was married to him for
how long did
8 years.
You date him for?
A year and a half. But here's the thing. He came from a very good all-American family, and I came from a very hectic Middle Eastern family where my father was very abusive, and I grew up in a religiously divided household. So my mom is a Jehovah's Witness. My father is Catholic, but I was born Catholic. I think I mentioned I'm Chaldean. It's one of the oldest nationalities out there. And as a Chaldean, you're not supposed to change your religion. You're supposed to be born a Catholic, die a Catholic. So the fact that my mom became a Jehovah's Witness put shame on my entire family. And so my family is just so crazy. I have 2 older sisters that are super drama and they're filled with trauma as well. And I don't speak to them. So my family was constantly fighting. There was abuse, not only physical abuse, but verbal abuse. My dad used to call my mom a whore, cunt, bitch, all in Arabic, constantly ripping the magazines out.
Wow.
A trigger. I used to hear my stuff and I would just like, my hair would just like raise up. It was just, that was a big trigger of mine. But I don't have that anymore, fortunately. But so I went from that household to be like, I just want a normal fucking family that's not Middle Eastern. And here this guy came, he was just so nice and he was really good. And he came from like the all-American family, which is what I thought I wanted because I'm like, I don't want anything to do with my culture. So married this guy, had a really good mom. I'm like, perfect. I got a mom to replace my mom because my mom is psycho. I'm like, perfect. His dad seemed cool. He had two younger sisters, or a younger sister and a younger brother, and I became friends with his sister. So I fell in love with not only him, he was a piece of the puzzle of a family. And now I was being adopted into this family. So for me, I married the entire family, and he had a really good relationship with his mother, and yeah, the congregation was nice, and it was just a completely different scenario that I was thrown in. That was just like, I'm just ready to get this life started. Like I've been like dying to leave this situation, and the only way I could leave is to get married. And it's not like I didn't love him, because I definitely did, but his insecurities just got to a point where I'm just like, enough is enough. So July of 2011, I actually ended up having sex with a guy I had randomly met, and I that was my wake up call. It was
Like
that
at a
after
bar, where do you randomly meet a
so
guy?
I met him earlier that year when I was flying to Vegas to visit my sister. I think it was like February, and we kept in contact. Like he was married but wasn't happy. I was married but not happy, and we would hang out. And then one day, one thing led to another, and we had sex.
Did he like
And
take you on a date?
no, I actually visited him at his house, and I was very naive. I was very
Well,
naive,
yeah,
and
because you
yeah,
didn't realize that that meant something. You're just like, let's just hang out.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like I'm like a good witness girl. Like I don't even
same,
care.
same, dude. That would happen to me
And
all the time.
and I mean, I felt like I was just like, this is just not the male attention that I was getting. Like I said, my husband didn't even let me have conversations with men. He would always consistently think I was flirting, even if it was like for 2 or 3 minutes with a guy friend of his or just a random looking guy. He was thinking I'm flirting with him, which is just ridiculous. So ended up having sex with this guy in July, and I didn't have the guts to tell my ex-husband until November, and it was Thanksgiving weekend. I was like, I need this weekend. I'm going to pack up all my stuff. And I had already found a place to live. I had a job. I had money saved up. And I was like, I don't need him. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to get publicly reproved or privately reproved because I still want to be the religion. Like, I'm not saying I want to get disfellowshipped, even though I want to get divorced. It does not mean I want to get disfellowshipped. Like, I still want, this is my life. I've been in the fucking cult since my mom became one when I was 6. And at this point, I was 32. I'm like, this is my life. Like all your friends, all everything.
Yeah.
I had never gotten disfellowshipped or approved or anything at that point. Like, I was a good girl. My whole life my goal was to be a good girl for my parents because I felt like being a good girl was going to win their love, and it never did. Anyways, so I told my ex I wanted a divorce, came home. Uh, I was listening to Paramore. All I Wanted Was You. I so remember this day. It was raining. I came home. It was Thursday or Friday. No, it was Thursday. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We need to work this out. And of course, I want to stay married to you. We need to speak to the elders immediately. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk to the elders. So we made a judicial committee, spoke to the elders, and I just said, hey, like, I know you want to stay married, but I don't want to stay married to you. Like, this isn't something that's just been happening, like one time situation where you're making me feel bad about something or insecure about myself because your own insecurities, and you never want to do anything. And what's up with, like, stop. You never want to do anything fun. You never want to actually be social. And I said this in front of the elders, I remember very well too. Like, if we keep on going down this path and we stay together, I'm going to cheat on you again. And I know that's not something you want to hear, but I'm going
Did you say
to,
that in
because
front of
this
the
is some.
elders?
I did. I did say that in front of the elders. And I was like, I was just being honest
Yeah.
because it was something that we talked about continuously. It wasn't something that, and I constantly stood up for myself. Like, what is your problem? Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not, it's not like I'm sleeping with your friends. And it's not like I'm doing anything wrong. Like, I'm just being a normal person. And like I said, vacations and just doing something social, it was too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I said that in front of the elders, and I just wanted to be as honest as possible. Again, with the framework that the more honest I am, the more that they're gonna be like, oh, she's so, repentant, and she obviously wants to come back. That's why she's being so truthful.
Yeah.
That was in my head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got dismissed out of the room like they do, and I got come back in, and they said I was disfellowshipped, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And it was the same week that I was turning 32. So I was actually 31 at the time. So yeah, during that week I turned 32 that I got disfellowshipped. My mom came into my apartment the week that I was getting disfellowshipped, and she said, you need to promise me that you are going to try to get reinstated as soon as possible. Like 6 months. I know that that's something that can be done. You need to make that happen. And I'm like, of course, mom. That's I was never wanting to get this fellowship. Like that's my whole intention. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So that weighed on me very, very heavy, that I really needed to get reinstated as soon as possible. And I missed, as you miss your community, you miss your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't trying to make friends in the world. Like
Yeah.
the world for me was just like, acquaintances. The
Yeah.
witnesses were my people. Like they understood me.
Yeah.
I spent my whole life there. Like they were my people. So plus my mom, I didn't want to disappoint her because I felt like I've already disappointed her, and she was furious at me for wanting a divorce. Like, how dare you be in this situation and be okay with it? And the elders said to me, the fact that I wanted a divorce said that I wasn't repentant. And they said that since my husband was the innocent person in the situation, it was his choice whether or not he wanted to stay married to me. And he wanted to stay married to me, and I didn't want to stay married to him. So he said, the elder said, since I wasn't repentant about the situation, that's why I was getting disfellowshipped. But the story doesn't end there. So I got disfellowshipped in December, and then in March, I get a knock on the door of my apartment, and it's my ex-husband. And he says to me, I met the guy that you cheated on me with, and he's not as attractive as I had in my head. Because he was an attorney, this guy that I cheated with, and my husband like pretended he needed a divorce attorney, and so he went to his office. I don't even know how the fuck he found. Like might have given him a name. I don't even remember at this point. Like I'm so dying. I'm like, so my husband. This was 4 a.m, knocking on my door. I met the guy. He's not as attractive as I had in my head. I can get over him. I really want to work. I really want us to work out. Like, please take the whole
Wow.
day off. I want to show you that I've changed. And he was just like begging. I'm like, no, like what if don't you get about this? This is not gonna happen. Like we've already come this far. No. So we went out to breakfast, and I went to like one of my favorite pancake houses, and they make the best omelets. They're super fluffy and just they were so awesome. And I remember going there, and we get our omelets, and I'm like, oh, this is so, it's like clouds. It was so fun. And he's already complaining. He's like, what is this? This is not even an omelet. I'm like I just needed one thing, and I'm like, fuck you. Like I just don't want to. What the fuck? Why am I even with you right now? We got back into his car. He had a Ford F-150, a really manly car, because he needed that
Yeah.
manly car to make him feel like a man.
Yep.
Get in his car. He's like, well, I don't want to get a divorce, so I'm gonna throw the ball in your park. Like, when do you feel like do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? He's like, and if you do want to do this, when do you want to start the process? I said, tomorrow. Tomorrow I want to start the process. And we were divorced within a month. So April 2nd of 2012 is when my divorce became final.
Did you
And
guys
he
split everything amicably, or how did
No,
everything get split?
I did not want anything. I
Wow.
did not want anything. I just left with the savings that I had from my job, and I put some money of mine toward the house, but I told him I don't want anything,
Yeah.
and just leave it at that, because at that point, the more I wanted something, the longer the whole separation was going to take. And I'm just like,
Totally.
fuck it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to deal with that. I just want out, and I'll make my way. And I called him December of 2013 on my move from California, or from Chicago to California, because my car broke down, and he was an engineer, and he said to me, I'm so sorry you had to go through all this, and every single girl that I've dated I've compared her to you, and just like this sad mopey story. And at that point, I still was trying to get back into the religion, because for 2 years I wrote 4 letters and they all got rejected. So on my move from Chicago to California, it had been 2 years since I got disfellowshipped, and I was still trying to get back into the religion. But after that phone call with my ex-husband, I'm like, do I really want to get back into the religion? Like, why do I want to get back into the religion? Oh, it's for that community. But do I actually believe in all those things? I started questioning myself so much. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to chill with this whole JW thing once I move. California will be a new start for me. And then I'll figure it. Like, if there's a Kingdom Hall near me, I might visit it. I still held on to all my JW clothes. And 4 months later, I met the Tasmanian devil of my now husband. He came into my life, and he said to me, after we met, like, so you're holding on to all this JW clothes. Like, I know you're not going to wear them. Like, these business suits, I don't see you wearing those anytime soon. He's like, you should donate them or throw them away. I'm like, but they're really nice, and I don't know. Like, I don't know about this. He's like, seriously, Vivian, they have like energy that you don't need right now. They're not serving you. So I just collected them all. Like, I love resale shopping. So I had all these like really nice designers, nice clothes, and they made me feel pretty. And just like, when donating them, just made me feel like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. And then being still like in this limbo of, but I wrote 4 letters. Like, I'm still holding on to something.
Yeah.
But then when he came to my life, I just was like, you know what, you're right. This is energy that I don't need anymore. And if my heart is already telling me, like, I don't want to be part of this anymore, I need to listen to more of that. And I've always been really good with listening to my intuition. So, like, you're right. You know, if I decided to go back to the Kingdom Hall one day, I can. But right now, I'll get rid of those things, and slowly but surely. Yeah, I didn't realize I was brainwashed until later on, but it was a crazy, crazy process. And my mom hasn't spoken to me. And actually, so those 2 years of me trying to get back in, my sister, who's not a Jehovah's Witness, but I was talking to her at the time, she would call me and she's like, Mom's wondering why you haven't gotten reinstated. What's taking so long? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, I still think to this day that the original elders at the Kingdom Hall that I was disfellowshipped at, like, felt so bad for my husband that they're like, we're gonna burn this like motherfucker. Like, we're gonna make her feel horrible. And I mean, yeah, I had so many anxiety attacks and so much stress during that time. It was horrible. Like,
Wow.
being disfellowshipped, like you said, suicide is like top of mind constantly.
Yeah.
And I had a friend when I was 21 that after she got disfellowshipped, she committed suicide. So it does happen quite often, but no one talks about it. No one talks about it. You don't hear that. No one says, "Oh my gosh, did you hear so and so committed suicide after they got disfellowship?" No.
Yeah.
That shit goes under the rug, just like all the sexual abuse that happens in the congregations. No one talks about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't spoken to my mom in 10 years. Well, I should say she hasn't spoken to me, but I know that she sees my my social media stuff, and yeah, she's around, and I'm always welcoming her into my life. If she decides to one day show up and be like, I'm your mom, hey, let's be friends. Like, sure, I'm all open to that. But I'm done trying. I'm not here to force relationships, but I'm open to creating new relationships. That's my story.
How do you think, because that's kind of similar then, as far as, the amount of time that your mom has stepped away from your life. Do you feel as if there would be, what I was talking about with my situation, do you feel like part of the holdback with some of these Jehovah's Witnesses is the hurt that they've done to their friends and family keeps them where they are?
Absolutely. I think that 1 second, I'm just going to plug my phone into my charger over here. There we go. Gosh, there's so much hurt that's attached to being disfellowshipped, just like with your parents. I would say there's so much of that. And I don't think that your parents or any parents in your situation they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because when they talk about it, it's so hurtful,
Yeah.
and it robs them of, they realize that the religion is brainwashed. And when you're in the religion, they even say, like, people are going to say we're a cult, people are going to say you're brainwashed, but obviously we're not. Like, they almost made it as a joke. But
Yeah.
when you confront, when if you courage to talk to your parents about it, it might not happen until they have 1 month to live, and maybe your dad brings it up, and then
Yeah.
you start having the conversation, and he might actually say, "You know what, Sabrina, you're right, but we were in the religion for so long, and we built a life there that we didn't know how to get out, and now we were so old." And it would just create more anxiety for them, and they don't know how to handle those kind of emotions. So instead,
Yeah.
they just bottle it inside, and
Yeah.
it doesn't serve them. If anything, it makes your relationship with them, like you said, it's constantly walking on eggshells. But if they were open about the whole conversation, then you can be open with them. Okay, Dad, so tell me, like, maybe we can start a new life for you. You're still alive. People don't understand that even though they're in their eyes old, like, there's people in the ex Jehovah's Witness group that are 70 years old that are leaving, and they're like third generation JWs.
Yeah.
So that for me is, and they have kids and grandkids that are no longer speaking to them. That for
Yeah.
me, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
So it's never too late, and there's never going to be a right situation to stop being a JW.
Yeah.
It's just, you just have to do it. And if,
Yeah.
if it's something that really speaks to you in your heart, then you really need to listen to it. And unfortunately, in the religion, they have so many rules, and they shut you off so much that you don't trust yourself anymore. So even if your true self is saying, Sabrina, what are you doing in the Kingdom Hall? Like, the elder over there, he's talking bullshit. You're
Mhm.
going to stay there because you've been there your whole fucking life. Everyone around you has been, your childhood friend. Your mom was friends with this mom. You guys grew up together. Like, it's such a mind fuck. And starting over again is hard, as you know. It's not easy. And
Yeah.
as you get older, you're more sedentary. You're more stuck in your ways. So it's
Yeah.
even harder.
Yeah.
So I personally think that your parents might even have wanted to become inactive at some point, but now they're so in it, and their community is so in it, that they don't know how to escape it.
Yeah.
And so they've made it their life, and
Yeah.
it's very unfortunate.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's there's a lot of good people in the religion. The religion has just made them a shadow of who they are, a
Yeah.
shadow. And I've talked to so many people that don't even know how to trust themselves, and they don't even know what they believe in. They don't know how to trust themselves. But just keep it simple. Keep it simple. The first thing that you feel when a certain situation happens, that is called trusting yourself. Every other
Yeah.
noise that comes in your head, it might be your mom's voice, an old elder's voice, an old boyfriend, all that is bullshit. But the first thing that you think of when a certain situation happens, like, leave the situation, do something, those are your inside voices, and you need to listen to those voices. Like
Yeah.
I said, though, unfortunately, the more you don't listen to that voice, the more it gets suppressed and suppressed and suppressed, and you no longer even know anything, and you just feel so scared and stuff like that. But we still have this choice of listening to our inner voice. It's our most vulnerable self, I would say, and it's there for everybody. We have all the answers to all the questions that we're asking people about our life.
Yeah.
I'm sure people come to you, Sabrina, and they're like, but I want to find my purpose. Can you help me find purpose? And you start
Yeah.
talking to them, and you figure out what their purpose
Mhm.
is. But then they become scared, they withdraw
Yeah.
because they realize, like, but that could be my purpose. Okay, then I have to create now, like I was saying earlier, I have to create a business around that. That's going to take a long fucking time. I'm
Mhm.
in this career now. I'm making this much money. I have a nice car. I have to throw all that away and
Yeah.
start from zero. What the fuck? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing good in life comes easy. It takes a lot of work, whether it's a
Exactly.
relationship with your partner, whether it's a career, whether it's moving to a different country. It takes work.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what I have to say. Show up for yourself. I think people they stop showing up for themselves and they lose themselves along the way. And one of my biggest things that I would regret is if I'm not listening to myself. I don't want to be every year that passes, I'm suppressing how I really want to feel about my life and or what I really want to do, and I'm listening to what other people are thinking or what other people want me to do and just following the the walks of what other people are wanting me to do. With my mom, the moment I told myself I didn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore, I realized I was living for my mom. And I said, from here on in, when I moved to California at the age of 32, for the first time in my life, I was going to live for myself. And I had no idea what that was going to look like. I was scared, but I'm like, I made it this far and I think I can make it. It'll be okay. It will
Yeah.
be okay. You
Yeah.
realize you don't need much to survive
Yeah.
and you will find your way. It's not in strength, in courage comes after a while. It's the small steps that turn into bigger steps that turn into bigger steps. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to take this huge step and just like do it. No, it
Mhm.
took a lot of courage for you, Sabrina, to leave your ex. It wasn't like one day you're like, oh, I'm just going to leave, because you would have done that a long time ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
People need to
100%.
realize that.
Yeah. Need to be more patient with themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so
Mhm.
I have my last question that I get to ask you.
Okay.
Uh, so what is something that you've splurged on recently financially in the last, either you've purchased it already or you want to purchase it? This is something that has to be several $100s, several thousands of dollars. It could be something physical. It could be something like a course. It could be something like an investment. What is something that you purchased now that you're like that you're proud of, that you're happy with, or that you want to do?
Um, so I'm super strategic. It's funny that you're asking this with my money. Um, I don't spend money like ever. It's funny because Dane jokes with me sometimes because the clothes that I own when I first met him are like the same clothes. I don't buy anything. Um, However, I always spend money on personal development. So
Hmm.
I buy books like crazy, like a few a month. Courses. The most recent course I took was called Transformation Academy. I bought that last year. The year before that, I took a hypnosis class.
Wow.
Um, so those were all
How was
hundreds of
that?
dollars.
Yeah.
Hypnosis,
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm actually certified as a master hypnosis
And can
sister.
you do that over, can you do that over
I've
the
never
phone,
done it
the internet?
over. I've never done it over the internet. I'm too scared to. I've only done it
Okay.
in person because there's so much stuff that can come up, and if I'm not there, I don't know how to handle that.
Okay.
So, being there, being able to talk them down, physical touch, can help with that. Um, so so lots of money on personal development always, and
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
probably been like that for the past 15 years. I'll
Hmm.
drop thousands of dollars to learn more for my mental and emotional. As far as material things, there's been
Hmm.
two things over the past few years since I left my ex that I did buy that were like huge purchases that are super out of the ordinary. So the first one was my Vitamix. So for anyone who doesn't know
Oh
blender talk,
yes.
A Vitamix is very expensive. And for a woman who's like just leaving and getting out on her own and is like trying to save every penny, it's a big deal to drop like $700 on a Vitamix.
Absolutely.
So my story with my Vitamix is actually kind of funny. So one of the things that I did when I moved out is I rented my bedrooms on Airbnb. And I had a woman staying with me at one point, like 2 years in, who she'd probably been with us for like 4 months, maybe. And we left. I was with Dane at the time, at that moment. And we had left to go visit family. And she was here alone. And I thought it was fine because she's a good person. We had lived with her for 4 months, nothing crazy. Well, when we get back, my Vitamix that I've used multiple times a day was not my Vitamix. It looked like my Vitamix, but it was not my Vitamix, like clearly. So, you know, like had a dent in it that mine did not have, had some rust spots. My Vitamix did not have rust spots anywhere on it. Like my Vitamix is my life. Like I take care of my Vitamix. And so long story short, when she had first moved in, she had forgotten that she had told me the day that she moved in, we were like showing her around every place. And we're like, this is the Vitamix. You can use it if you want. Do you want me to let me show you how to use it? And she was like, no, you don't have to show me how to use that because I have this same exact model in my storage unit.
Oh shit.
Yeah, same model. Not just like I have a Vitamix. She's like, I have this same model in my storage unit. So she basically swapped out my freaking.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that was a huge deal. Like that, getting something stolen is a big deal. But like that was my very first purchase when I moved out of my ex's home, where like that was a definitive I'm out because I already had a Vitamix at his house. So I left my Vitamix at his house. Even though it was a gift to me, I like left it there. I did not want to argue over the Vitamix. So when I bought that Vitamix and dumped $700 or $800 on that, that was like me stamping my feet on the ground saying, I'm not going back. I am out and I'm staying out because I don't need two Vitamixes. So like that was like a huge thing for me. And she freaking stole it. So anyways, I let her off the hook. I like called her.
What?
Well, this is what happened. So this story's getting so long. So she left, like we came home. I noticed immediately within like the first time of using it. I like pulled Dane aside. I'm like, doesn't this look weird? And he's like, oh my gosh, what? Yes. We start like inspecting it, all this stuff. So there's like dust underneath where mine was like super clean because I like dust it in and out and around and over. And so I confronted her. A few days after that, she left. And I didn't know what to do because I'm codependent, empath, hate confrontation, that whole thing that I'm working on. So I sent her a text and I said, hey girl, I know you just left. However, I forgot to ask you before you left where my Vitamix is because I've been using your Vitamix and I don't know where you put mine in the house. I can't find it. Like letting her off the hook so that she can say, oh yeah, sorry about that. I brought it to my mom's house or some shit. Like she could have, I called her out. She could have lied, even though we both know. And she straight up was like, what? I don't have a Vitamix. What are you even talking about? That's not my Vitamix. Never owned a Vitamix. I don't know about Vitamixes. Totally fucking lied. She told Dane and I together at the same time when we were walking around the house that she had the same exact Vitamix in her storage unit. We both freaking heard it. Then 4 months later, she's like, I've never even had a Vitamix. I don't even know a Vitamix, blah, blah, blah. So right then and there, I'm like, bullshit. So
what a story.
we lied right back to her. And before she came back, I sent her like 2 days later, I sent her another text and I said, hey, sorry for the short notice, but Dane's children are going to be coming down to stay with him for a few months, and we need your bedroom. So unfortunately, you gotta go. And she like balked at that. She's not happy, obviously. And she's not, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, the contract says 2-week notice. We're giving you a 2-week notice to get out. So she came back. I gave her a complete silent treatment, all girl caddy style. Didn't look at her, didn't speak to her, nothing. We'd be in the kitchen. I didn't even acknowledge her. She tried to speak to me a couple times, and I just never even responded. I never said one more word to her ever since then. And anyways, literally 4 months after she left, the Vitamix broke because it was a piece of shit. It was old. So it broke. So I had to go out and buy a new Vitamix.
But didn't it still have a warranty on it?
I didn't have a warranty. It wasn't mine.
But you don't need a warranty. You just have to give them the serial number on the bottom. At least I have a Blendtec, and that's what they did.
That's not how it is. You have to have the thing has to match the thing. And I have mine.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I have mine with my number that I registered. I don't have hers.
Fuck.
So that's another reason how I found out, because I called. Because I'm like, who knows? So I called when it broke. Because I was fine. I actually wasn't fine, but I was like fine. But I was I cried.
Sabrina, what is
I literally cried. For real, I cried. It was a big deal.
Fuck.
It was like losing your engagement ring or some crap.
Oh yeah.
A year after you get engaged. Like, that's a huge freaking deal. So so I called them with my number off of my card, with my warranty, with the number on the bottom, didn't match. So she took it 100%. Didn't know 100% until that moment. And then, so they wouldn't do anything. They're like, you can buy new parts. I'm like, why would I put old stinky parts into a blender? I don't even know where this thing's been. Could have been like freaking smashed around during a move or something. So I had to go out and drop another $700, whatever, on a whole new blender. So within 2 years, bought 2 $700 blenders. So that's one. That's one purchase. And then my second purchase was a huge deal. So my ex, we slept in a king bed Tempur-Pedic, which are mad expensive, like thousands of dollars. And one of the things that he used to kind of joke with me about, like sarcastically in a narcissist way, whenever I would decide to leave, or whenever I would argue and say, I'm out of here, this is freaking bull crap, I'm out. He would joke with me, because that was one of his defense mechanisms. One of the things he would do when I would get really mad. So when he got mad, I would cry. Like, he would just say things until he just broke me. But when I got mad, he would laugh. So he would joke, because my feelings are meaningless. So whenever I would get mad and I'd say I was moving out, I couldn't take it anymore. He's so mean, so rude. One of the things he would joke about was the bed. And he would be like, you're never going to leave me because you love the bed. Because I always used to say that I loved the Tempur-Pedic beds are the freaking bomb. So I would just say that randomly. I'd be like, oh my God, I love this bed so much. Just randomly throughout the day, finding gratitude in my day, I would mention the bed. So he would joke and he'd say, you're never going to leave me because you love this bed so much and you can never afford to buy one on your own. So that was one of my goals, was to, when I moved out, I was going to buy myself a Tempur-Pedic bed, and not just any Tempur-Pedic bed. I was going to buy the king size Tempur-Pedic bed. Shit. And I didn't buy it right away. So I moved out and slept on a shitty bed that I got secondhand on OfferUp. I bought it secondhand on OfferUp from somebody else's freaking house. Slept on that for a year. And then literally when Dane and I moved into our second house, which is the house I'm in now, the first thing that came into my house, pre-ordered before we even got any furniture in it, was my freaking Tempur-Pedic bed. And we slept on this like $5,000 Tempur-Pedic bed on the floor until the stand actually is quite hilarious how it's sitting now. So those were the two things that were big, like the big deals, was my Tempur-Pedic bed and my Vitamix. It's like,
what stories you have. I love that.
What's
Those
so
things are
funny
very
about my
important.
what?
Those things are so important, though. I was right with you for both of them, so I
Yeah.
completely understand.
What's so funny about it though is I'm so cheap. Just to prove to you how crazy I am. So I one of the things that I did early on to make myself stable, not only did I rent on Airbnb, but I also would go around the neighborhood. I would leave my house at 10 o'clock at night and I would drive around my neighborhood for 2 or 3 hours a night and I would collect people's garbage and resell it on OfferUp. For real, this is what I did. I would make upwards of $2,000 a month doing this. I still do it sometimes just for the fun of it. I'm not even kidding, for real. So one of the things, so by the time we got this bed, I was already with Dane. So I wouldn't have been able to get this by myself. I would have had to leave it in the garbage. But do you shop at IKEA? Do you know what IKEA is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's a Swedish brand.
Yeah.
It's from Sweden. So yes.
So they have this shelving unit that's like 5 shelves up and then 5 shelves across. It's like a huge square that you can put like on your wall and it's enormous, like 5 feet or 6 feet by 6 feet. It was in the freaking garbage. So I called Dane. I do it by myself. So I called once I started dating Dane, whenever I saw something big, if it seemed worthy, I would call him at like a retarded hour, like 1 a.m. And he was always down for it. So I called him and I already have one in white because I love books. I have this whole thing filled with books in my office. This was another one, but this was brown. So I was like, I'm going to paint it. I'm going to put it on the other side so I have even more room for more books. And so he came, he helped me. It was a whole thing. We had to like get my brother involved. We had to get blankets and like pull it up. It was in the middle of the night, fucking midnight, doing this crap. We get it on top of our vehicle, barely. We're like strapping it down 1 a.m, freaking, like rummaging like raccoons at the night. And we get it home. It's enormous. We get it off, shove it in the garage, go to sleep. Few days later, I'm like, in my garage, I'm looking at it. Do I want to sell it? Do I want to keep it? Am I going to paint it? Looking up YouTube videos on like how to paint IKEA furniture. And all of a sudden, I'm like, how freaking big is this thing? I measure it. I go into my room and I measure our Tempur-Pedic bed. Perfect size.
Oh, shit.
Yes. So I call up Dane immediately. I'm so excited. I'm like, as soon as you get home today, we have to go to Home Depot and we need to get some particle board that's like 5x5 or 6x6 or whatever the size is. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just don't worry about it. We have nails. We have a hammer. So we get this thing and I tell him about my idea. So my $5,000 Tempur-Pedic bed is sitting on a shelving unit from IKEA that we found in the fucking garbage.
I love that.
Particle board is the platform, and that's on top. We don't even have a headboard, but we're.
I love it.
And then probably like 3 months later, so it's the brown one. You know how they have like the white, tan, and brown. So it's the dark brown one. About 4 months later, I found a woman who was selling all the matching Malm dark wood furniture for like $300. So we got 2 dressers, 1 tall dresser, 2 nightstands for $300, and they all match my garbage stand for my
gosh. You and me sound so much alike. I love thrift shopping, so it's like so much the same. And I used to collect garbage too. I used to work in a really ritzy neighborhood, so I completely understand. People throw away like Pottery Barn stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? Like
for
chairs,
real
furniture?
For
it
real.
blows my mind. It's like, somebody spent $500 and for me that's a lot of money, but for them it's like a cup of coffee. So I'm just like, it's wild. I fucking love your stories.
Thank you. We've been literally talking for 2 hours.
Sorry about that.
And I don't even think I put up number 6. This was fun.
It was.
This is the longest one to date.
Oh shit. Okay. I hope that's okay. no. Sorry. Did I
Okay.
just cut off?
Do you want to do
I'm
any
still
closing words before I head out? Because I got to do the outro.
No, I just want to say that was a lot of fun. And thank you so much for having me. I hope if I don't come back on the screen, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, okay. Then don't even worry about me showing up on the screen.
Let me close out, and then maybe you'll still be there when I. Sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth, their words, and their story according to their perspective. Have an awesome day. Much love.